watching the It's Her Time podcast with Cody and Jess. How many of you girls have been raised to think that our best years are the years before we hit perimenopause and menopause, that those are the times that we shine, and then once we hit this phase of life, it all goes to pot? Well, in this episode, I'm so excited to bust that myth and give us all a little bit of hope that we actually have some of the best years in our life to look forward to. On today's episode, I have guest Dr. Karyn Eilber. She's a urologist from Beverly Hills. She has over 27 years of experience working with women with their health. And she is also the co-founder of a lubricant company called Glissant. She knows her stuff. We get into all kinds of great information that can be helpful for us to be able to thrive during this transition. And she also shares a lot of the things that she has done that has set her up for success. She's beautiful. She's amazing. She's goals. She's what we all want to look forward to being when we hit this stage of life. You're not going to want to miss it. But before we get into that today, let's go and join Jess for a Mixers Girls Say.
We're going to continue for this episode's Mixers Girls Say crazy birth stories, because the amount of submissions on the question box
We're crazy.
And it's just interesting how many women have had crazy birth stories, and just, it's not surprising. I'm so proud, but women are just so tough.
They really are.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing. Also, I don't want to scare the pants off of our women who are pregnant. It can go beautifully well. These are,
Listen to this.
Craziest stories.
This is how it can go.
Oh, okay.
Woke me up because I was crowning, had me push once, and then I waited 15 minutes and my baby was here.
Wow.
Cody's like,
women like that.
There are people that can have perfect deliveries. And I'm like, well, let me tell you.
And she's the one. She's the one.
Oh, this is hilarious. My son was born in the car 5 blocks from home in the front of the corner store. I didn't even make it to the hospital.
Wow. That would be kind of scary, but hopefully everything was just easy breezy. No problem. She just catches her baby.
Oh,
no worries.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. I started reading the next story and I'm like,
yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Okay. Told my husband to run.
When you can't even read it, I always know it's going to be good.
Told my husband to run and get me Chick-fil-A. Thought we were going to still have a few hours before baby was delivered. Don't worry. I had the baby in the 15 minutes that he was gone.
Oh my gosh. I hope you
know that
she's like, but did you get the Chick-fil-A?
Like, there's a Chick-fil-A sauce. Or she's like, oh, it's coming. And he's like, I'm stuck between cars, like in the drive-thru, can't get out.
Like,
FaceTime instead.
Order? Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Didn't even know my water broke. My husband had me convinced I had just peed myself.
Oh, I have a funny story.
I don't know. Had baby 5 hours later. Awesome.
Can I tell you an embarrassing story? So with my first, I didn't know what it was like to have your water break. I think I thought it was going to be more dramatic, like you see on TV.
Oh, mine was dramatic.
Gosh, I'm sure it does happen. My son, he was born early. And so he was trying to come early for a while. And I was at work and I was having Braxton Hicks, those contractions. And I had a really strong Braxton Hick. And some liquid came out, okay? And so I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I guess this is it. We're going to go to the hospital because I think my water just broke. So I go to the hospital. They're checking me out and everything. No, I had just peed my pants. Like it literally, the contraction pushed some pee-pee out of me. Yeah. And I was so embarrassed. Imagine going back and the whole office is so excited to hear what?
Oh, going back to work.
And I'm like, nope, just peed myself. Oops.
Yeah. No, interesting is I ended up going to the hospital just because my contractions were so normal and regular and just so hard. So we drove to the hospital. I stood up out of the car and just, it was my water broke, but just everywhere all over the parking lot.
But just place to do it.
Oh, I stood out of the car and just
out in a parking lot.
Yeah.
Not in the car.
Great, but then I was
inside with carpet.
Oh my gosh, splash. Like a water balloon broke on the
what
ground.
You see. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's go into the episode.
Let's do it.
Mixers is a company made for women by women. Each of our products have been carefully and lovingly crafted to support you in all stages of your life, providing you with the optimal health you deserve. Each ingredient we handpick is 100% all natural, backed by science, and chosen specifically to better your life physically, mentally, and hormonally. Each product empowers your body to take charge of its monthly hormonal shift and flows, empowering you to live life to the fullest. Let Mixers take care of your needs from sunup to sundown, and you take care of the rest. Check us out at mixers.com, MIXHERS.
Welcome, Karyn. I love having you on here. You are a wealth of knowledge. And today's topic, we're going to talk all about women's health and hormones and what that looks like as we start entering into the different phases of like perimenopause and menopause. Because I know so many of us girls kind of have mixed emotions when it comes to what menopause is and what we should expect and how do we set ourselves up for success. So I think that's what I want to talk with you about today is I want to see, all the good things too, the things that we can that are positive, the ways that we can actually look forward to this phase of our life. And so I know you're the girl to talk to about this.
I don't know if I'm the girl, but maybe one of the girls.
You are. You are the girl.
Touching on your comment about how, women have different emotions about this. I think there's such a mixed bag of emotions because of a lack of understanding and not because women aren't smart. I just think we aren't given a lot of background and knowledge and tools. I always talk to my patients. I said, because they're like, oh, I can't believe I don't know that. And I said, well, how would you know that since we don't really have a class in it? Like I always think, we have our health class in junior high. I do think that when young women are in college, there should be some class. And I'm pretty sure it'd probably be, signed up by every woman in college about, what happens to your sexuality? What are your birth control options? And then there should be like another class. There is some education like around pregnancy itself, but there's not really info about afterwards. I mean, think about, we're just really now accepting the fact that postpartum depression is a thing and it's common.
Yes.
Right. So like it's terrible too, because when you kind of don't fit into that picture, what you expect it to be, then you think there's something wrong with you. And we don't even have really good information. Like if you really wanted to find out what's happening with my body, around perimenopause, menopause, what even is perimenopause? Mm-hmm. It's not like there's one source you can go to. So I think that podcasts like this are really important so that women can find places to go that are kind of private, right? You kind of look at it, you don't have to talk to anybody, show anybody. It's not embarrassing. And you can actually hear from maybe experts, if you will, that you would not necessarily had access to otherwise.
You're right. Absolutely right. And that's why I love having this opportunity to have this podcast and this platform, because I feel like these conversations haven't been had, like you said, and whether it needs to be in formal education or not, I know most of our education and what we learn, I guess, about the different phases of a woman's life comes from like our moms and our sisters and our best friends. And, but it's nice to have an expert on here like you who can also be our friend and, and tell us all the things, but also from a medical side and somebody that is like in the trenches doing
the work personal side.
Right. Yeah. You see everything, right? We'll talk about that too. But yeah, there's so many things that I feel like I love, that we're able to talk about. And I want to make sure that in this conversation, women are getting the burning questions that they have, answered. So I know that puts a lot of pressure on us to answer those burning questions, but I want to first talk about like, what are some things that, for our listeners who are just in their 20s and 30s and 40s and maybe aren't even thinking about this phase of life yet, other than it's something that they should probably, dread, right? I think that's what most of us, right? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Are there things, during these ages of life that they can do to help set them up for success so that they don't have to dread the dreaded menopause stage?
Now, it's human nature not to really do things until things are a problem, right? And, you kind of know you're supposed to take your supplements and exercise, but it doesn't quite kick in until you look in the mirror one day and you're like, oh, wow, that's sticking out a little more than usual. Or, hey, what happened to those wrinkles? Or maybe I'm getting a little, tight in the middle there.
Right.
So, things like mixers are great. And if you can work them into your lifestyle. So like, throwing a couple of packets in your purse, you can add, I'm not a great water drinker just because like it's satisfying, of course, for your thirst, but like I like a little bit of flavor.
Right.
So,
Right.
so if I can and I'm also somebody who I love to multitask. So if you can tell me I can make my water taste better and I can get my vitamins and my supplements in there, more power to it. So I think that the earlier in life you can really get in the habit of, and I was telling one of my patients this yesterday, I hate to be such a cliche, but sometimes cliches are true.
Yeah.
You have to eat healthy, you have to exercise. If you buy a new car, when you maintain it, that car is going to last you a lot longer, right? Than if you ride it really hard and don't take it for its tune-up. So same goes to the human body. If you take care of it, it's going to probably serve you for a long time better than if you didn't.
Yeah. So it's worth it to kind of do all of the maintenance before you actually crash, right? And burn. And so, I think that perimenopause, is our phase that we kind of go through. We do go through before menopause. And it used to be more common that it was maybe 3 or 4 years. And now it seems like it's happening much earlier for women. And some women as early as age 35 are starting to experience perimenopausal symptoms. And I think that a lot of the symptoms that we are just dreading are actually part of perimenopause rather than menopause. And the reason that things are happening so much sooner and so much earlier is because we aren't doing that kind of maintenance. We're instead of having the natural decline of our sex hormones, which happens as we start to kind of move out of our fertile years, we have this plummet. And that's when we start getting the brain fog and the night sweats and the hot flashes and the low libido and, and then all of the periods problems that come along with it, the heavy bleeding, the clotting, so many things that so many
Don't
women
get us wrong,
deal with.
ladies, though. We love being women.
We do, but this part of it, no wonder we
really
hate.
Terrible, but we love being women.
We can love it, and we can also not have to suffer like this. These symptoms don't necessarily have to be a part of being a woman, right? They are symptoms telling us that we're not doing the maintenance, that we're not necessarily helping this transition along. We're kind of we're lacking. We're not doing that maintenance that you talked about. And so yeah, I always am I at least tell my daughter, and I wish that I could go back in time and tell myself, I tried, my best, but there was a lot of things I did wrong during my, those years of life, 20s, 30s, and into 40s. Cause I thought I was doing healthy things. For instance, I'll give an example. I was of the mindset of, counting calories and, so which put me into a calorie deficit most of the time. And then just exercising like a beast, just going hard every single day, thinking that these were things that were helping me to set myself up for health. But as women, we do talk about this on this episode. So I won't turn this episode into, talking about how important it is to exercise and eat right according to our monthly cycle. But just even for phases of life, it's great to work out hard, but not every day for a woman. We don't respond to it quite as well. And by doing so, we actually kind of set ourselves up to crash once we do start getting into that perimenopause phase. And then that makes it just really rough for us.
I think you make a good point, though. Exercise and just counting your calories actually isn't really right. You have to exercise and eat right. And then, not everybody has the diet that has certain supplements, or maybe you have different needs. Mm-hmm. So, I had some hair issues where I had this condition, alopecia areata, where I would actually lose chunks of hair. And it was really when I was having hormonal changes, a lot of stress in life. And I'm like, okay, and, as a doctor, mm-hmm. we are not really well versed in supplements. I mean, that's just not something that is part of your regular medical school curriculum. So even for myself, I had to do a little research to find out, okay, what are the good supplements for hair for this? Everyone kind of is biased in those things, but mm-hmm. what really made a difference is vitamin D, wow. And all mm-hmm. these things combined. And even though I ate healthy, I'm not a huge dairy person. And so I probably really wasn't getting enough vitamin D, but it is interesting, we really need to listen to our bodies. And what you said about perimenopause happening earlier, in urology, we have noticed, more infertility issues. And one of the theories is, the hormones that are used for preparing the foods and different things. And I do think, and I'm, don't get me wrong, I'm not some totally a tree hugging liberal. And trust me, I love my McDonald's fries, but, we probably don't have a great Western diet. And, the more processed foods we eat, and even in our everyday, like our cosmetics and different things have all sorts of chemicals in it. So we have to do our best, I think, to do what we can to take care of our bodies for the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the standard American diet is called the SAD diet for a reason. It
Oh,
is, right? It's totally lacking in the nutrients that our body actually needs to thrive. And, when I was a new, nutritionist and I was working with clients and things, I used to kind of have the thought that you should get all of the nutrients that you need from the food that you eat. And while that's true, we want to try to do that because getting nutrients from food is best. It's really hard. It's really hard to get all of the nutrients. And so we are lacking. And I see that all the time too. It's very common. I always tell women that it's important that they're getting enough of a couple of key ingredients or key nutrients. Vitamin D is definitely one, especially those of us that live in areas where we have winters and we have less sunshine, right? It's hard for us to get all of the vitamin D that we need. And vitamin D is actually a hormone, but it's something that is stimulated by the sun, and it's so important. And so you think about it, if in the winter or during, just our everyday American kind of lifestyle, we're inside a lot. We're slathering ourselves up with sunscreen. We're just not getting the foods that we need that also are the nutrients that help us to be able to better absorb that vitamin D and all of that as well. So there's a lot that we can do. And that's where supplements come into play. I love that's why we're passionate at Mixers, because we want to make health easy and we want to give women those key nutrients that really can make such a difference in a way that is easy and convenient and fun. And you don't have to think about it. And it makes your water taste a little extra special that day. And, all of those things, because by doing it every day and on a consistent basis, getting all of those key nutrients, if you're not getting it all from the food that you're eating, it adds up. It makes the hugest difference as far as how your hormones are going to function, how healthy and vibrant you feel, all of those things. It's key. So I love that.
Now, also, I think women are having like perimenopausal symptoms earlier, maybe not necessarily because they're perimenopausal, but I think women who use birth control pills for a prolonged period of time, they suppress their normal hormonal cycles a lot. And so they will experience those. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, they all have their place, but, we are altering like our normal cycles, which for some people, including myself, that only makes like your life livable because otherwise like you're so all over the place. But, when we are manipulating our hormones, then we're going to also have changes that maybe are at different ages than we would have thought previously. Mm-hmm. I also think it's so funny that we attribute a lot of things to hormonal changes that have nothing to do with it. And then we don't attribute things to hormonal changes that totally are. Like, it's like, no, I'm not in a bad mood because I'm hormonal. You're just being a jerk, and
right. Right?
So please don't gaslight me about my hormones.
I know, because I feel like everything gets blamed on hormones, but they're a big deal. They do have a big impact on our lives and our moods and everything. But yeah, sometimes people are just jerks, and they deserve for us to fly off the handle, or those tears were justified,
or
right?
Like, so tying in hormones and nutrition. Okay. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm not a gastroenterologist, I think because people can't figure it out, I will see people in consultation because they're having bloating. So they think maybe it's their bladder causing it. But generally bloating is either your GI system, it's hormonal. And what's so fascinating to me is we have so many trendy diets, right? So people will become like keto overnight or do like a paleo diet overnight, and they wonder why they don't feel good. And it's so funny. I always feel like there's so much to learn from like your pet, right? So like you would never just change your pet's food overnight because it would have, diarrhea or some other problem. You always transition the food. And yet as humans, we think we can just change our diet overnight and feel well. Or like people who go like to extreme, and I think vegan is great, vegetarian is great, but when you go the extreme, again, you're lacking a lot of, it's really hard to get protein when you're, totally vegan. So people don't feel well. And I'm like, because you're not eating well and you're not really, you just like when you were talking about counting your calories and exercising, you thought you were doing something healthy. Well, sometimes you don't know. And probably more times than not, I find myself over the years actually referring people to nutritionists like you, because again, nutrition is another thing we don't really get a lot of education in during medical school.
Yeah. That's when I was in practice. That's what I loved is I would work hand in hand with doctors like you. And it made a good team because, I loved that there were doctors that realized there's more than one approach and it can go beyond just a symptom. Like having the birth control sometimes can help to control the symptoms, but it never cures the hormone imbalance. So it might quiet some symptoms down, but it's not actually healing the root cause of why we're experiencing all of those terrible symptoms, right? And so, but I loved working with patients that would come to me, with their doctor saying, "This is what's going on," and then I would say, "Okay, this is how we deal with it, and we're going to try to set things up for so that you can feel your best with the nutrition and with your lifestyle and with your mindset and all of these things." It all goes hand in hand, and I loved having that opportunity, and I loved doctors that were like you, that were open-minded to that, because it really does take takes taking it as a holistic approach, right? We need to look at the whole picture instead of just one thing. So I love that. And yes, I'm big on there's no one diet that's perfect for every single person. So these trends that are out there, all of these nutrition trends, everybody, every woman, every person is a bio individual. So where vegetarianism, veganism might be what is the perfect diet for you, it might actually be poison for somebody else if they tried to eat like that, or keto, for instance. And as women, especially, and I've talked about this a lot, we are cyclical. And so we need all of the nutrients. And especially there's certain times of the month where you're going to need more carbohydrates. And so keto would be terrible for you during, that luteal phase, for instance, where in the follicular phase, you don't need quite as much protein, and you don't, but you need lots of green, fresh, vegetables and things like that. And so that's the time maybe a vegetarian diet would be great. So I think it's don't think all or nothing, I am keto, I am vegan, just think about what it is that your body needs, so that you, during the month, and think of yourself as, I am a woman, and what do I need, and how am I going to eat according to my cycle? It really makes the biggest difference.
I'm just laughing because during your cycle, you're right, except that you're craving candy.
Yeah. You're craving candy because your body's needing carbohydrates, right?
Right. You're I know I should eat better, but I really just want to have a big Oreo.
Yeah. Because that's quick, and you can get that carbohydrate in there and that sugar, and that's what your body's telling you need. But I always recommend, when you do have those Oreo cravings or whatever it is that's, your sweet tooth is calling for, go for roots or fruits. Okay. Because you're going to get that sugar, and you're going to get that high dose of carbohydrates, but then you're not going to have that gross, yucky feeling afterwards, and you're going to be getting all the nutrients you need. So when I say roots, I'm meaning your root vegetables, your, sweet potatoes. And
it's so much better these days, though. Because think about when we were kids, there weren't really a lot of healthy alternatives.
No.
I mean, now whatever you crave, you can almost always find a healthy alternative. But yeah, I mean, I loved my bologna sandwich as a kid. What can I tell you?
I know. I think we were all raised on Kraft mac and cheese and bologna sandwiches and, all of that.
Wonder bread.
It's no wonder that we're hitting the stage of life, and we're So you girls learn from us, learn from our mistakes, then start setting yourself.
We sacrifice ourselves for you. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, exactly. So learn from us and do it differently. Do it better than we are. So, okay. I do want to talk about this, because I think this is something that when I was working with women that were going into perimenopause and then into menopause, we did have to change up their diet just a little bit, because this phase of life, not just for the month, but as a phase of life, it's so important that you get more protein. So your body is, when it's going through this time, it actually, not only are sex hormones going low, but naturally our stress hormones start to rise. So it's a little more common during this phase of life to have higher levels of cortisol. And so by having higher levels of cortisol, what that does is that makes it so that then we have higher blood sugar, right? And so in order to kind of counteract that, this is the time of life where you do need to up your protein and probably eat a little bit more protein than you used to. Because I know this was something hard for me. I was vegan and vegetarian. I mean, I've done everything. I feel like I've been the guinea pig for every diet and tried it all. And I'm somebody that doesn't love to eat a lot of protein. I don't love chewing protein. I'll drink a protein shake. I'll do all of that stuff. But then as I started getting into this phase of life that I'm currently in, which is perimenopause, I started switching it up and being more conscious about how much protein I was getting in every single day, and what a difference it's made, and how much easier it is for my body to now, when I do work out, to actually gain muscle, to be able to reduce those cortisol levels and the sugar, and everything. And so my body's not in a fat storing mode. So have you noticed how your diet has had to change as you've gone through different phases of life?
I mean, I definitely changed my diet. a little cleaner, when I started having like hair issues, because I'm like, okay, well, first of all, everything just starts to slow down, your metabolism, everything, right? And so and again, we didn't know any better. There wasn't as much emphasis on, yes, we knew the 4 major food groups, and that was about the end of our nutrition education, when we were kids. So I definitely changed my diet when I started having hair issues, was much more conscious about, taking my supplements, picking the ones that I felt were going to benefit, what was going on with me. And you definitely, you feel better. And, I think that 2 things. One is, I think everybody knows they just don't feel well when they overeat. Right. And so I think that when you also eat a little healthier and cleaner, you get full, but you don't feel like, disgusting and like you just want to like roll over and like rub your belly or something. But also, and totally TMI, sorry audience, but
never TMI. We want to know.
Regular. I have so many people who see me with complaints of like bloating, constipation, stuff like that. And I'm like, it's not your bladder, it's your, it's your lifestyle and your diet. And again, back to, you can really learn things from your pet. So our dog, God bless her, she passed, but she had a lot of GI issues as a puppy. And so we had to try so many different, kibbles. And we finally found what worked for her. And, if she would sneak something on, she's a big dog. So she could literally like put her tongue on the table and take food. You wouldn't even know what happened to it. So if she somehow got, human food, she would have, all sorts of GI issues. So when we were really strict and made sure she had no access to anything and she ate same time every day, that dog was like clockwork. And yet we wonder like why we're constipated, why we're bloated. Well, maybe you're putting a little too much, and I'm not saying you have to eat the same thing every day, but when your diet is so varied and certain foods clearly we know can cause constipation, gas, different things. I think also people tend to go a little overboard with their probiotics. People forget that, or maybe now don't realize those are actually live bacterial cultures and they will replicate in your gut. So if you're taking your probiotics 3 times a day, you're gassy because you're making too much gas in your belly. So I think that, yes, I definitely adjusted my diet. I don't want to be advertising, but like for myself, because I eat probably healthier than the rest of my kids, my family, I do one of those, delivery services where it's fresh. Because the other thing is it's hard to also, and, we're not trying to say like everybody can do this. It's hard to eat healthy when you're busy. Because you got to go to the store because fresh food goes bad faster. So yeah, it is a little difficult. You definitely have to make an effort.
Yeah, there's lots of obstacles. I think we all feel it. We've all experienced it. And that's why, so many of us struggle doing things exactly how we know we're supposed to be doing it. Right. And so I think when you can, work in some strategies, like I love, the food delivery, that was a strategy that is now going to set you up for success. So I think that's a great way to go. And we're all busy and we're all looking for convenience, but at what price? Like that's the thing. So I always try to, encourage, because I don't expect perfection. I'll have a French fry from McDonald's every once in a while too. But, it's like you want to do your best. It's good, better, best, right? Try to do your best. And if you can't do your best, then, do some simple things that can maybe ensure that you're filling in where you might be lacking. So, like making sure that you're getting in a good probiotic, but also prebiotics. I don't think we talk enough about that, how important it is to get those prebiotics in first. And where do we get them? We get them from we can take digestive enzymes, which are like in our her greens and some of our other products that are that we sell at mixers. But it comes from the fiber in your fruits and vegetables. That's what the good, healthy bacteria in our gut feeds off of. And so if you're putting all of these probiotics into your gut, but you're not giving them anything healthy to eat, then yes, you're going to experience all kinds of symptoms. The bloating and and the constipation. And we are just a constipated nation. And another reason we're constipated is because we're not, we are. I talk to women all the time and I always ask, because this is, what you do when you're in my field is you there's no such thing as TMI. And I want to know, how often are you pooping? This is something that can tell me so much. I don't have to always send people on to go get an expensive GI tract test. A lot of times I can just say, how often are you pooping? I still like those tests because it tells me what is exactly living in there and can help me to know exactly which probiotic to recommend. But I want to know, like how often are you eliminating? Because that makes a big difference as far as, how you're feeling, but not only that, but how your hormones are going to function, whether you are going to have hormone imbalance, because one of the biggest hormone imbalances that comes from constipation is estrogen dominance. And one of the biggest hormone imbalances that leads to really terrible perimenopause and menopause is estrogen dominance. And so, yeah, taking care of our body and our gut and our health and making sure everything is being removed that needs to be removed and we're detoxifying properly really can make such a difference overall for everything. So,
totally.
Yeah.
I think a good point to make though, because I don't want people to walk away from this and think, oh my gosh, I can fix everything with my diet. And if I can't, I'm failing. I mean, you can only try your best, like you're saying. And there are still some women who, need some type of hormone replacement to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
So just to reinforce you're saying here earlier, I think we're open-minded to everything. So, there are some people that find it better for them, just to do some hormone replacement to fix some symptoms. And maybe it's just too hard to do the dietary things. Or, there's some people who just physically cannot exercise, right? If you've got a bad hip or you have other issues, it's really tough to do that. So, we're just throwing out some info there. So, don't think that we're like so militant.
Yeah, no, that's why I love having these conversations because I want to talk about it all. Because I know that we always can just do our best with our diet and our lifestyle and things, but there are some ways that we can also give us that and a little extra support as needed. We've talked about supplements already, but I did want to talk to you about the role of hormone replacement therapy and like what that could look like and what a difference it makes and who should be maybe looking into it and what questions should we be asking about that? Because I personally, I as I'm going through perimenopause right now, I haven't hit menopause yet. I am, looking into it. I obviously am doing all the nutritional therapy. I'm taking my her time. I'm supporting my body's detoxification systems, like we've talked about. I'm helping to try to support that progesterone and estrogen balance, and reduce the cortisol levels and all of that through supplementation and through nutrition and through lifestyle. But I'm also an advocate for bioidentical hormone replacement therapy because I feel like that can make a big difference so that when you do start getting into menopause, then again, these symptoms aren't always going to just like have to take over your whole life. So can you talk to us like, let's say I'm in your office and Dr. Karyn, I want to know what you would recommend for me. Tell me what I should be looking for.
I mean, I think the first and fundamental question is, what's bothering you?
Yeah.
Because some women think that just because they've stopped having their period, they should start hormones. And if they have no symptoms, I mean, why, if it ain't broke, it's really hard to fix it. So I think the first question is, what is your symptom? If it's, my libido is low or, I have brain fog, whatever it is. I mean, that helps to kind of direct what it is. And there isn't necessarily a lot of variation on what hormones. I mean, everyone needs estrogen, and if you still have a uterus, you also need progesterone because if you take estrogen alone, that does increase your risk of getting uterine cancer.
Good to know.
What there are options for are what type of hormone replacement are you going to do? So I also think it's important for everyone to understand that bioidenticals aren't necessarily safer than prescription hormones. Because think about the bioidentical, like your body doesn't know if, the estrogen came from, and we do get it from, horse urine. So Premarin is pregnant mares. And whether it's, synthetic, your body has the same reaction. But a big difference is bioidentical hormone replacement is much more titratable, or you can actually customize it more for the woman. So I have a lot of women who they just cannot find the right prescription dose of their hormones. And the only way that they can feel well is they get a bioidentical made. And there are also women who are so sensitive to hormones. So there are different types of estrogen. So estradiol is the most common form that's out there. Estriol is a weaker form. And there are some women who just can't take anything that is stronger than that. They need a weaker form. And you cannot get that, except for really compounding. So that's really the biggest difference. And, it also becomes complicated. Women who have their personal history, family history, breast cancer, all those things need to be taken into consideration. So if a woman is having overall hot flashes, terrible, can't sleep, she needs systemic hormone replacement. And then you just titrate it, maybe her libido is really low, maybe add some testosterone, but maybe her only complaint is she's got some feels like her vagina is irritated all the time, just feeling dry. If it's only with sex, can use a lubricant, and I can recommend a good one.
Yeah,
or
you can.
You can also just use vaginal estrogen, which does not really go systemically. So even women who have breast cancer can use certain vaginal estrogen replacement.
Wow. Everything you just talked about right then are these amazing things that showed us like so many options, right? And you're right. It's just like with the nutrition that we recommend for people. There's no one size fits all. And so you want to have these kind of conversations and talk to your doctor, and don't be embarrassed to say, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, my vagina is so dry right now that I don't, enjoy having sex with my partner, or I am waking up every single night just wringing wet, because I'm having hot flashes and it's making it so that now I can't sleep and I'm getting terrible sleep and it's stressing me out. And just tell them everything that's going on and let them know, because the more information that your practitioner knows about how you're dealing with life and how you're feeling, the more customizable, your plan and your protocol can be. And so, yeah. And it's important also it's never, you need to let them know about your family history. I feel like people always are worried that like, oh, you don't want to hear about this, and there's just too much information to share. But all of this is important. And if you want to have an amazing practitioner on your team, the way that they're going to be able to help you most is by having as much information about you as you can possibly share. So I love that. So yeah, so continue. I would love for you to continue on, because I do feel like there are some very important questions that like maybe this could give our listeners just like, these are the top questions. If you don't even know what to ask for, these are the things that maybe you should for sure make sure that you're talking about with your practitioner when you start going down this road.
I think a very important thing is to make sure you're comfortable having these conversations. Everyone has their own biases, including doctors. And, you kind of, if you get a feeling that maybe your doctor is anti-hormone or maybe not open to what you need, there is nothing wrong with getting second opinions. I mean,
yes.
You check out 5, 6, 7 cars before you buy one. You might consult with a couple of hairdressers. When people go to seek a second opinion, they come back to me, they're like, oh, I'm embarrassed to tell you I went somewhere else. I'm like, good.
Yeah.
You came back. So that means like, you want to come back and see me. But anyone who's worth their salt really shouldn't be insulted if you seek a second opinion.
I agree. So be open.
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I also think that when you see your practitioner, again, make sure that if you can't find someone necessarily in your area who's doing hormone replacement, there is an organization called the North American Menopause Society. So like myself and many other practitioners who find it really important to make sure we understand what is going on with hormone replacement. You can actually look at the North American Menopause Society website and find someone in your area who is, actually has certification. That can be really helpful.
Oh, that is the coolest information ever. I love that, because that could take a lot of guesswork, because you don't know always like, does my family practitioner like know anything about menopause or know anything about, and it's common. Often they don't know a whole lot. So to have somebody like you who actually is certified and knows the ins and outs, about menopause, like that would make me want to come see you hands down, like above anybody else that I would talk to. So that's really good to know about. That's a really great resource. And is that available? Is that nationwide in the United States, or is that worldwide? Or
I think it should be, it's North American Menopause Society. I'm pretty sure it includes Canada also.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's just, and again, your doctor doesn't have to necessarily be certified. I'm just saying if you can't find a doctor, that's one way to help find one. But, many general gynecologists, I wouldn't say most primary care physicians probably don't do too much hormone replacement, but, a lot of gynecologists do. Some urologists who specialize like in female medicine, like myself, will also do that. But yeah, if you don't really feel like you're kind of getting what you need and you have questions, I mean, there are resources. And, unlike, I can't remember now how many years ago, 30 years ago, when we had no internet, it was much harder to find resources. But now it's much easier to do.
Yeah. Well, great. Yeah, that's true. I guess, but it's just if you're like having that conversation with your doctor, your practitioner, and you're like, this isn't going anywhere. I feel like I'm not getting any answers. This is an awesome, awesome resource. And I think that's so cool that you just shared that with us. Thank you so much.
I also think women in general, we just want to keep the peace, right? Like We're usually the one, I mean, it's, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's what makes women great. Like we just want to make things work.
Mm-hmm.
But on that same token, I think we're also just very accepting of whatever we're told. And I think that's where a lot of this gaslighting in women's healthcare occurs. So if you want to know your hormone options and, you feel like you're kind of being blown off a little bit, like, oh, you're fine, it'll pass. Like, I take care of a lot of incontinence, and women say, yeah, I saw my doctor like 10 years ago, but they said that's just kind of like normal. And, I should expect that. And I'm like, well, it's not normal. It's common.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you statistically can experience that, but it doesn't mean you have to put up with it. So that's why I think that the attitude is changing for women in general. I think we're getting a little more empowered, but don't feel bad to ask questions and see someone else. And you were talking earlier about like with age, I think with age also you get more confidence, you get more experience. Like you've been burned a couple of times. So at our age, it's like you're not afraid now to ask questions and go, to a different source if you're not getting what you want.
Yes, I agree with that. I feel like this stage of life, I do think I kind of had the story that was going on in the background and that this was something to dread and to not look forward to. But now that I'm in this phase of life, I actually love it. And I'm like now seeing women like you and like all of these women that, are around me that are just thriving and they're sexy and they're confident and they know who they are. And they're not necessarily looking back at their former selves and thinking, oh, I wish I was back there because it was so much better. It's like, no, this is the time of life that we should start talking more about how it can be like the prime of our life. It really can be. I know that there are symptoms that we possibly can deal with. We've talked about that a lot in this episode. That's the reality because it is very common, but it doesn't have to be considered normal to suffer. It is possible, and there is hope that we can actually step into this phase of life and feel beautiful and feel sexy and enjoy our sex life and enjoy this new freedom. Like many of us have raised our families at this point and are now enjoying just like whatever that means. We're in our careers at a place that we've worked really hard to get to. We do have that confidence. We've got the creativity. There's just a little, I don't know. I'm loving this phase of life and I'm loving looking up to women that are owning it and are just like, are putting it out there because I feel like that is exciting. And so I would, with all of that being said, I would love it because I do look at you, Karyn, and I'm like, wow, goals. Like you and I are close to the same age, but I want women, if they are listening to this, to go and actually watch this episode on YouTube and look at Karyn. Because she is gorgeous and beautiful and you're just glowing, right? And so this is what menopause can look like. And that's what I hope I experience. And so tell us, like, what are some of the things that you are doing? And I know not everybody's going to do what you do, but what are some things that you have done to help you to be able to transition and to look so great?
So I have been very consistent my whole life. I've always exercised throughout my pregnancies, everything. And you're right. And it's always been with moderation. Mm-hmm. Like I run a lot, but I'm sure I physically could, but like, I don't really want to run a marathon because like all that training, I'm just not sure how good it is on my joints. Like I know after X number of miles, like I kind of feel at different places. Yeah. So I'll change it up, I'll do my Peloton other days or do yoga, which I think yoga is not just great exercise, but I don't have to pay a therapist separately because it is like my meditation. Yes. And although I've definitely eaten cleaner in the last probably 10 years, I always tried to eat relatively healthy. The one thing that I wish I had known more about, and I think Mixers is great, and I think you're targeting, also younger women. I just didn't really realize how important supplements could be. And again, it's, I think that's just lack of education in general in our society at that point in my life. So I think it's great that like Mixers and other, companies like you are really pointing out the importance of it's not just eating, and it's also not just, okay, I don't feel good, so I'm going to start taking my supplements this month. That's not how it works. It's really got to be like an ongoing thing and a consistent thing. And I love analogies, right? So again, back to your car. If you take care of your car, and actually the funny thing is my car is really old too, because I take care of it. It's just going to last you longer. And like, yeah. I got really, my hormones were crazy. My pregnancies were crazy. I gained like 65 pounds my first pregnancy. I was like literally twice my width, but I was like, okay, and I had fun eating. I don't know. I wasn't that way. And I kind of liked being a little chubbier than I was normally, which is kind of fun. But yeah. after I was done being pregnant, I'm like, I went back and I ate healthier and I just did my thing. But there is work to it. People are like, oh, you're so lucky you're thin. I'm like, no, I got up at 4:30 this morning and I ran, I did all my stuff. So whether it is your health, and your sex life, it takes work. So here we are in this phase in our life. You're working all day. Your hormones are taking a little decline. I mean, you don't just get in the mood, right? And so society makes us think that like you should just all of a sudden feel sexy. And no, that's not really how it works. You have to kind of support your libido, like things like supplements. You have to get in the mood by getting your lingerie, literally setting a date. So you kind of have something to look forward to. Like that's why we made, the Glissant lubricants to look sexy. So it's not like you've got this moment and you pull out a tube of lube that looks like toothpaste. No, like you want everything to be sexy and contribute to that mood, but it takes work. And I think that's one thing that we, as women, you're made to feel like there's something wrong with you to not like want to have sex like that. But I hate to break it to you women, that is not how it works.
I know. It's not like Hollywood makes it out to be, right?
No, absolutely not. And so again, taking things to support, the hormones that can help with your libido. For centuries, there are lots of Chinese herbs and different botanicals that we know can support things like that. So I think it's really, for me, it's just been consistency.
Yeah.
I just think you can't really change abruptly if your maintenance is the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Consistency is key. And I think that's so important for us to know. But at the same time, I don't want women who are listening. They're like, well, crap, I have not been doing what I need to be doing. I've been doing all the things.
You can start today.
now and then stay consistent and it will pay off. You will see the results and you will enjoy, this stage of life because you've put in the time and you've put in the hard work. And that hard work is worth it. And we are worth it. We're worth putting that time and energy into our fine, little machines, right? Like we're all fancy cars, right? That are going to be classics. Now we're in the classic stage. So, okay, let's talk real quick because I know I've kept you for so long and I know you're so busy, but I do want the women that are listening to know, like you mentioned, Glissant, you are the creator of Glissant. And that is such a great tool. Tools are a big part of this too. Knowing the right tools. This is where some of the wisdom comes in, right? As we get older, we get to know like what tools do we need and how can we use them to the best ability?
Not just knowing about the tools, but not being embarrassed to use the tools.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, when people think of lubricant, I think there's this misconception that, oh, you must be this dried up old lady. In fact, the majority of people who use lubricants actually use them just because it makes things feel better, not necessarily because they have to use them. But, one of the things that I came across, after being in practice for a while, I had so many women say, I'm avoiding sex because it hurts, because I'm dry. Can you recommend a good lubricant? And, there were only a couple that were really kind of at the pharmacy that you saw. And so many women came back and said, I really feel actually more irritated or I feel like I'm prone to infections after using them. So I started looking at the ingredients and what those common chemicals can do. And you're like, well, first of all, I'm pretty sure I'm seeing all the ads in the beauty industry that you're not supposed to have these chemicals in your cosmetics. Mm-hmm. So my co-founder, who has been in the beauty industry for a long time, and she made clean products before clean was even a thing. I said, hey, can you kind of help me do this? So that's how we started it. And it really is so that women can have a clean, natural option for lubricant that is also not embarrassed to carry around or keep on your nightstand. So you can see behind me, but I am just so proud of it. And, back to your comment about how I think why you and I are embracing also this point in our life is we're doing something that is, we know we're helping other women. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important. And it's this catch-22. The more you help women, then they want to also help other women. And, when we lift each other up, and I know it sounds so cliche.
No, I love this.
But it's just so true.
Yeah.
And also if you take your supplements and you eat well and you exercise, you feel better and sexier, then you're actually more in the mood to do it. And just becomes this catch-22 where things just kind of feed on itself. And so you just keep feeling better and better. And to reinforce your point earlier also, so what if you haven't been doing this your whole life? Start now. And the reality is sometimes this is the only time you had time to do anything for yourself.
I know. Finally, you've got time to do something for yourself, right? No, I love that. The listeners are tired of me saying this because I this is where my heart is that when women feel better, we're able to go out and do better, and we're able to do the things that make our life feel so full. We're able to take care of our loved ones. We're able to do the things and be the things and it just makes life so much better. So I love that you feel passionate about that too, because that's what drives me every single morning when I'm like getting up and working at mixers, or I'm getting on this podcast, or I'm a guest on other people's podcasts. This is why. It's because I just feel driven to help us understand that, yeah, it's worth it. We got to put our own oxygen mask on first. We got to do the self-care. We've got to know that we deserve it. And it's not selfish. It's actually selfless, because it allows us then to be able to serve more.
It's also okay to be a little selfish too.
Hey, selfish isn't always bad, but you know what I'm saying? I feel like so many times as women, especially, I don't know, we're just always caring, and we're caring for others, and we're putting all of our energy into others. And I just want women to know, like, no, it's okay. It's like not selfish to care for yourself and put that energy and like recharge your batteries.
Yeah. Especially for the younger listeners, I was well into, my oldest was a couple years old. So finally, like, the light bulb went on that the nanny and my husband and my child don't notice if I come home 20 minutes later. But the 20 minutes that I take to go to the gym or get my nails or go to the store, just, being alone was so therapeutic for me. Because like, if you're running around, you get home and you're all harried and you're just, it's not good for anybody, including yourself and those around you. So you're right. Technically, it's actually selfless, but you feel selfish because you feel like, women in general feel like we always have to be giving our time to somebody else. It's okay to keep that time for you because, what do they say? Happy wife, happy life. I mean, it is true.
It's true. It's true. So I hope all of you that are listening today, like, do give yourself, even if like Karyn was saying, that 20 minutes is not that long, and it's really not going to like ruin everybody else's life around you. If you take that for yourself and start there, and then do that consistently, and you're going to be able to feel your best through no matter what age or stage of life that you're in. And that's what we're here for. We want to support you. So I love that we've got tools, like with Glissant, and just the knowledge that you have shared with us, and to know that there's other practitioners out there like you that we can turn to. And then also just with the nutritional side, we want to make it easy. And, that's why we've got mixers. We created Her Time to help women of all ages and stages of life. But we also now are excited because we have a product that is now just completely designed for you to help you thrive, get all of those key nutrients that help to reduce the symptoms that sometimes can feel so hard and we don't want them, and to help support that like beauty from within and that energy from within and that sex drive that maybe kind of went south a little bit. We're so excited to introduce Her Thrive. And so thank you so much for being on this episode with me so that we can talk all about this and let people know that are listening that this is a time of life to look forward to. It's a time of life that we really can shine and feel our best.
It's a great time. Takes a little bit of effort, but it's worth it.
It's totally worth it. So thank you for listening and tuning into this episode. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with the girls in your life, because sharing is caring. This is how we get the word out. This is how we spread the hope, right? So tune in again next Tuesday. We're going to be back with another great episode. And thank you, Dr. Karyn, for being on here with us and sharing all of your great wisdom with us. We appreciate it. So until then, you guys have a happy and healthy week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.